Hi, my name is Zach Fisher, and welcome to another Tech Talk. Today, I'm going to be giving a very uh, brushed over overview of Kubernetes, but it is, in my opinion, a very good way to introduce yourself to what Kubernetes is. Kubernetes is something that has been discussed a lot in the recent conferences. For example, at VMworld, it was a huge topic. And Kubernetes is essentially it's not necessary if you're running a very small environment, but if you start to run any kind of sizable environment whatsoever, it becomes necessary. And this reminds me of how you wouldn't need a manager if you had a single person company. That is kind of nonsensical. But as soon as you get a sizable company, you definitely need a manager. So you get thousands of people. You need somebody to tell them what they're doing, where to go, and kind of organize the whole company and create a vision for the company as a whole. And that's really what Kubernetes does for containers. When you think about Kubernetes, only think about containers and only think about basically a manager for those containers. That's all it does. It essentially tells the containers what to do, where to go, and makes it very much easier to manage a large amount of containers and scale a large amount of containers. Just like if you had a manager, they would make it, a very good manager would make it very much easier to scale a company. You can't really have a company without some sort of leadership, some sort of management. So that's like this. So you've got if you have a single container, then you can run that container on a single server. If it's in test dev and you don't really care about it being replicated, you can run that using native tools or a couple of software tools. And I'm not going to try and confuse you too much, but basically it would likely be Docker on top of Ubuntu. And you could run that container, it would work perfectly well, and you would not need Kubernetes. So what happens when you have thousands of containers and you're trying to run them on hundreds of servers? There's no way you'd be able to manage that environment, tell the containers where to go, and manage them specifically if one of those servers failed. Server failures happen all the time. And you want to make sure that you have, say, replicas. You want to make sure that the network information is all good if one of those servers fails. So that is what Kubernetes does. Kubernetes tells those containers where to go in the server stack. Where are they actually going to reside? How many replications are they going to do? That's what Kubernetes does. It is essentially a container orchestrator. And it has a few different pieces, and I'm definitely not going to cover all of the pieces because I wanted this to be like a 3 or 4, maybe 5-minute overview of Kubernetes without confusing non-technical folks. So you have your master, and what does your master do? Your master tells the containers where they're going to go, tells the workers what they're going to do. So in Kubernetes, you have masters and you have workers, and each of those have different components, different software pieces to them. But essentially, you've got your master node and your worker nodes. The master's just telling them what to do. And essentially how the master gets his information. So if you see at the top, you've got this YAML file. The master is essentially a useless brick without. It's basically like a computer without software. It's basically a paperweight without the YAML file, without being able to understand what you want to do as the application designer, where you want to put those workloads, how many replicas, what kind of network information, all those types of things. The master needs to know those things. So you tell the Kubernetes master, what do you want to do with this workload, and it tells them what to do. Just like your manager, if you're a manager, you have to have a plan. You have to be able to articulate what you want your workers to do, or they'd just be floundering. So this YAML file has essentially just a bunch of configuration information on it. It has, how many replicas do you need? What is the network information? And a lot more information. So essentially, that is what Kubernetes is at a high level. Now, if I do another video on this, I will go into a little bit more detail on things like what a pod is, different components of what a worker node has in it, different components of what the master node has in it. But before you understand each of those things, it's important to understand why we need a container orchestrator, essentially a manager for containers. It's to organize and to tell them where to go, what to do, just like you have a manager at work. So my name is Zach Fisher. Like, subscribe, and comment with any questions. Thanks.